Hello and welcome to a Talk to Stu video. This is a quick one, well, sort of quick, a bit ramshackle, I suppose, video that I'm posting because the live stream didn't work very well this evening. Obviously there's terrible weather everywhere, and being out in the sticks as we are, things didn't quite go according to plan, and the sound and the video and even the chat wasn't working. So I'm hoping to post this this evening. We'll see if it uploads in time and I get to answer the questions that were posted, and hopefully, assuming the weather's okay, we'll have another crack at it again on Thursday evening. So I'm just quickly replying to one of my moderators. My brother who's moderating this evening, Duke of Nuke. He's a great guy, always very helpful. So just going over the questions that we had. So the first one was for Denise Smith, who I started answering this, who says that she's in the RAG group, the WRAG group for those that don't know, and the job centre are calling her every month to look for work. Just wondering how she stands with this, because she doesn't feel she could take a job with her health problems. So if you're in the work-related activity group, whoever you are, the job centre shouldn't be putting undue pressure on you to look for work at the moment. Any support that they give you to find work should be relative to your health condition and your ability to be able to do work. Now, that's not to say that that means that they won't put pressure on you, because obviously in some cases that they will. This sort of thing is best challenged with support if you can get support to do that. The best sort of support usually is one-to-one support from a benefits advisor or a disability rights advocacy service or something like that that's local to you or near to you. Now, quite often there are long waiting lists for these services, if there are such services in your area. But the sooner you get on that waiting list, the better. There are also services that are a bit further afield as well, which might be out of area but might help people in different parts of the country. So it's best to look around. It's hard for me to give very detailed advice on this particular question, because it entirely depends on the nature of your condition and what your ability to do something might be. Part of the advice would be to engage with it as positively as you can. So quite often they put pressure on you to do certain things which might be over and above what you can do, but you can reach some sort of compromise and say, well, I can do this instead. If, however, you're in a position where you can't do any kind of work at all, then arguably you shouldn't be in the work-related activity group. And so getting that addressed and getting moved over into the support group really is probably what you should be aiming to do. The other thing as well to think about is the mental health side of things as well, as this is a factor with job centres, where job centres and work coaches or job coaches should be considering the impact that this is having on your mental health, to essentially be harassed or encouraged, whatever way you look at it, back into work. So getting some sort of support with your mental health through health services such as the GP, getting that recognised, and then making the job centre aware of the impact that that's having on you, and what things you're needing to do. kind of manage that. You know, is it putting you in a position where you're very, very stressed all the time? Are you having sleepless nights? Is it making you ill? Have you stopped eating? You know, is it even going towards having suicidal thoughts? All of those things. These are things that the job centre has to make sure that they're not putting you in a position where they're making you unwell. Okay, but as I say, finding one-to-one support is the best thing. I'll come back to one-to-one support later, because that generally is my advice with a lot of things. But what I'll do is I'll post links in the description of this, which will help you locate that. So moving on, Elizabeth Rennick. She was denied high rate mobility last year and she's still on standard rate. Would it be worth it to apply again? So this is a really important thing to bear in mind with personal independence payment, is unless your conditions have changed, you cannot essentially reapply or ask for reconsideration in the way that you would previously with disability living allowance or attendance allowance. So it used to be if a decision wasn't made properly, you could wait a certain amount of time and then reapply, and maybe a different decision would be made. What is really important is if a decision is made that you do not agree with, that you must appeal that decision. First of all, requesting mandatory reconsideration within the 4 weeks after the decision is made. Okay, because if your conditions have not changed in any way, they will just stick with the original decision. They won't change that. What you have to do is follow it all the way through. Now, at the start of the video, I did mention that there was a report in the Big Issue today with whistleblowers talking about their experiences working for Atos, Maximus and Capita, and things that were placed on them. Now, the Big Issue references that 90% of PIP claims are turned down the first time. Now, I've not seen that 90% figure before. My personal feeling is, yes, it is a very high figure, and I wasn't able to reference where that is. But I do say to everybody, the process with PIP is not just applying for it, it is not just filling in the form, it is also mandatory reconsideration and probably appeal as well. Do take faith in the fact that over 65%, some 68%, some say 64%, previously it was 74%, very high number of appeals are successful, and I personally believe those that aren't successful is down to a technicality or not having the right support in place to help you with that appeal process. So yeah, the numbers are very high and they're in your favour. I don't agree with the process being like that, of course, nobody does. Very few people do. Indeed, but that is the process. If you are going to have a review with your PIP and request that, then you must make sure that you get the largest amount of evidence that you can, put that together and make it very clear, and be prepared to go to mandatory reconsideration and appeal if the decision is wrong. Okay, so that's my advice there. Not the most helpful advice when it's after the fact. I understand that and I apologise for that, but yeah, you know, you as I say, as always, get the support and get the help to get you through that process all the way. What are the new rules around, Brian asks, what is the new rules around old style ESA and WCA? I also received PIP. Thanks and Happy New Year. Unfortunately, I'm not really clear about what the new rules are. Essentially, all of the rules around old style ESA are pretty much all the same. Not much of the legislation has changed. There are some things coming out over the course of the next year or two, which I have referenced in and talked about in detail in previous news update videos over this year. There was one in my autumn statement, certainly back in August and July, also April. So if you are following this channel, then do go to my channel, the actual channel page, and look at the Universal Credit PIP and ESA news videos. There will be a lot of information in there. Also have a look at my FAQs videos. That covers some of the things that are happening. Do bear in mind as well some of the things that have been proposed, certainly in the autumn statement around employment support allowance and universal credit. Those things haven't come to fruition yet, so we don't know exactly what those rules are. We know that some areas of the country are having these things pushed on them, maybe like Denise, whose question I answered a few minutes ago, those kind of things. So yeah, it's difficult at the moment to say exactly. There have been a few changes, but these are mostly around how people are transitioning, whether or not they're going to be expected to look for work. There's also been some changes around maybe how the government looks at bank accounts, all sorts of things like that. But a lot of that I have covered in previous videos, so do have a look through those. How do you deal with your local council trying to avoid applying disability-related expenses into their social care financial assessment? That's a really tricky one, and that's a great question from Nick Wilson. So with the social care financial assessment, disability-related expenses are pretty much set across the country as to what they are. And most of those things are within a certain framework. So some things are over and above, and some things are standard. So the standard things that you would expect to see in a social care assessment are things like an increase in the number of washing machine usages in the day, where people, for example, if they have incontinence, maybe they have to wash more clothes than they would normally. It might be an increase in costs for electricity, gas, things like that, and a sort of moderate increase is sort of expected with that, sort of probably around 30% in the calculations. There are things that are outside of that or over and above, and most of those things that are considered over and above would be or should be picked up by a disability benefit, such as attendance allowance, personal independence payment, or children's DLA. So it is difficult to actually get things that you probably think should be included in the social care assessment but probably aren't. Again, what I would advise, because I don't know what it is that you think is a disability related expense, for me to be able to say, well, yes, that is what the local authority will consider to be a disability related expense or not. That's quite difficult. So what I would recommend, again, is getting that one-to-one support to look at that those things as to whether they do qualify in that way or not. The local authority should be able to provide you with guidance as to who would be able to support you with that. And again, it depends on your circumstances and whether you're talking about for yourself or for somebody else. Can a local carers support organisation help you with that if you're caring for somebody else? Are you over the age of 55? You might be able to get some detailed advice and guidance on that from Age UK if you are. Even if you aren't over the age of 55, Age UK do have a lot of PDFs that you can download from their website which talk about social care assessments, personal budgets, things like that. And those rules pretty much apply to everybody of any age. It's just they are things that people of an older generation are more likely to need. So those documents and things are available there. So do have a look into that. But quite often those things aren't really uh, as what you think a disability-related expense is and what the local authority think one is, or rather what the government thinks the local authority should think one is, do tend to be quite different. So it's worth digging down into that. If you do need to challenge it, you do have to just directly appeal or put in a formal complaint to social services if you think that they've made the wrong decision. You will need to go through to the financial assessment team with that and probably request another financial assessment. Okay, so next question. I work part-time, 20 hours a week. My UC finishes in May this year, but I won't get my state pension until December. Is there any financial help I can get between the two dates? That shouldn't be the case at all. That shouldn't be the case at all. It shouldn't be finishing before your state pension starts. One should run into the other. Again, for this one, I would say definitely go to Age UK with this. It might be that you're able to claim pension credit. I can't quite remember off the top of my head whether. I know that you can't claim pension credit in advance of your state pension age. I think it used to be that there was a bit of a crossover period, possibly. I would definitely get in touch with Age UK on this one. They will be able to advise you specifically on that. It's a while since I've done that, but there shouldn't be a gap. Not of that many months. That's what, 6 months? No, that shouldn't be the case. Jane Kitty Cat, will people who are in the ESA support group be forced into work when the supposed change when will this change be forced upon us? Yep. The plans as they are is that everybody on ESA will be targeted, both in the first of all in the work-related activity group, and then looking at the ESA support group. There will be certain conditions that are identified which the government will decide in its infinite wisdom are the sort of conditions where people could go back into work or could work from home, things like that, even if they are ill long term or whatever. Any decision that's made can always be appealed and should be fought against. There are key elements of legislation within the ESA rules which are important to focus on, and again you'll need to get some one-to-one support with that. It will depend very much on what condition you have, on how they're able to actually deliver this. I'm not saying that it's empty rhetoric exactly with the government, because they are definitely putting these things into place. It's not empty rhetoric, but from what we know, there are significantly large numbers of people that don't have significantly large numbers of people not working at the DWP and local job centres that were, and that's put undue pressure on them. There's a lot of money being thrown at that, but is it enough money? Probably not. So how quickly this will happen, we're not really sure. Whether it will be across the country or not, we don't know at the moment. Everybody from ESA is going to be transferred over onto Universal Credit, and then it will be happening there as well. Many disability rights advocacy groups are up in arms over it, rightly so. So again, it's trying to find that one-to-one support. Have a look on the Disabled People Against Cuts website and the Disability News Service website. They're very good. Again, if you're over 55, try and get support from Age UK. If you have a specific type of condition, for a mental health condition, for example, you might look to Mind and see if there's any local groups by Mind that might be able to support you with this sort of thing. If you've got a condition that like fibromyalgia Action UK might be able to support. Motor neuron disease might have support, so there's all these different kind of organisations out there that may be able to offer support locally to you, so that's worth having a look at. So thank you for that question, Jane. But yes, essentially, according to the letter of what was said in the autumn statement, they will be targeting everybody in groups, and it will be about specific health conditions, not just about which group you are in. How long does disability payment last? Asked Caroline. I was asked to apply same time as PIP. I'm waiting on PIP review. ESA deferred till September, but not heard anything from disability. There are huge delays with both of these things, partly for the reason I just mentioned, which is that there's fewer and fewer people working at the DWP now, also fewer people working at ATOS and Capita and Maximus who carry out these assessments, and staff retention is obviously not very good, but also people who work in health professionals, they need health professionals to do these jobs. Not many health professionals will go along and start doing this work because they know what it means to be doing it, so it's getting harder for them to recruit people and then retain people, plus there's training involved and all that sort of thing. So the whole process is taking much longer than it should do. Most people that are having PIP reviews are waiting 18 months or more. People who are applying for PIP for the first time, they're supposed to be seen within 6 months, but we're starting to see that 6 months wait is creeping on, and that's 6 months to the first decision. That's not including PIP appeals, mandatory reconsideration or appeals. Employment support allowance, again a similar thing with that. If you're receiving money in your review, that will continue while you're waiting for your review. Rather, if you're receiving that money, it will continue, and if you yes, and it will continue until a decision is made. And the way they've changed it now is sometimes when that was the case previously, it would be that people had to pay that back. That's not the case now. Generally, if a decision is made, you are paid up until when that decision is made, and you don't need to pay anything back. So Eliza Khan, I suffer from brain fog. Me too, as you may have noticed this evening, and concentration issues. When I did my PIP, the assessment lasted 3 hours, bloody hell, due to my health problems, explaining it all. Some things I forgot. Can I ring them and add on? You can do, yes. Obviously, do be aware that you will be on the phone for quite some time, waiting just to speak to somebody. You can always phone up to add extra evidence, but do check as to who you're phoning. If it was Capita that was doing that assessment, then it might be that you need to contact Capita. It depends how quickly you're calling them after you spoke to them on the phone. Do be aware that they tend to refer people back to the DWP once they've done the assessment very quickly. It usually happens within 2 or 3 days. So if it's after that 2 or 3 day period, then you will need to phone the DWP on the PIP helpline and speak to somebody there to add extra evidence or extra information. I would recommend personally sending in by post. So get it written down, be very clear, point by point as to exactly what you're saying. Use bullet points, something like that. Type it if you can, handwrite if you're able to. And again, as always, if you're not able to do those things yourself, try and get somebody to help you with it, even if it's a friend. Post it to the address that's on the top of your PIP letter, because it will tell you what mail handling site it's going to and which PIP department it is. some are PIP 1, PIP 2, PIP 3, so on and so forth. So make sure that it goes to the address on there. And if you write, always put your national insurance number on it, so that goes to so that they know it's yours on every sheet of paper that you send. Try and add in as much medical evidence as well. Up until you get the decision, you can send that in. The sooner you send it in, the better, because obviously if you add any further information, it might be that extends the time that they take to make your decision. So yeah, that's all of those questions answered quite quickly. Obviously I'll be back on Thursday evening if everything's okay with the internet, but who knows, we'll see. And I will at least put out an update advising you of what's going on. So thank you all to everybody who logged in and asked questions this evening. So it's been a bit of an odd one, and yeah, hopefully we'll see you all again soon. Do take good care of yourselves, stay healthy, try not to get too stressed out, and do look in the description below, because I'll pop some links in there for places to try and help you find further support. But if you need a bit more detail, or like normally when we're doing this, I'll say, can you ask them a few more specifics on those questions. If you feel I haven't answered your question in enough detail this evening, please come back on Thursday and we can get into it in a bit more detail. Okay, thanks very much again, and take care. See you soon.